Hello, and welcome back to my channel, everybody. My name is Kristen Ann, and today I am here to bring you 6 really important tips for when you are planning your vacation. Now, I am a licensed travel planner, and these are 6 tips that I really feel like will help you when you're planning your vacation, whether you're planning it by yourself or if you're using a travel agent. Meaning, you can do these things yourself, or if you are using a travel agent and they're not helping you with these things, you should probably get a different travel agent. These are really important, and I really feel like they're gonna help you guys when you're planning your vacation. All right, so let's do it. Let's talk about the 6 really important tips for planning your vacation. All right, so let's go ahead and start. Number 1, decide what is important to you on your vacation. This is the most important thing before going on any trip. And I can't understand why nobody does this. I don't know if they're just not thinking about it or if nobody's ever told them. I don't know, but it's so important to decide what you want when you're going on vacation. I just feel like that's kind of obvious. I mean, how in the world are you supposed to plan a vacation if you don't think about what's important to you? If you're not a fan of the heat, why would you want to go to the Caribbean? If you want to make sure you stay within a tight budget, why would you plan a 2-week-long cruise to the Mediterranean? And if you want to take your kids, why would you look for adults-only resorts? These things just don't make sense, but I tell you, it happens all of the time. So for all of my clients, I always ask, what are the 3 most important things to you when you're going on your vacation? What are the 3 things that you just cannot live without while you're on your trip? So I'll give you some examples about some things my clients have told me when I've asked them the same question. Somebody told me, all-inclusive is super important to me. So ding, I'm not gonna go and look for a hotel with no breakfast and no amenities, blah, blah, blah. Why would I do that for them? If all-inclusive is super important to them, then I need to know they want an all-inclusive resort. Hello, it's common sense. And it was important to them that they didn't have to pull out their wallet every single time. That totally makes sense. I know, for example, on Royal Caribbean, you can prepay your gratuities or your tips. So as you go, you don't have to be pulling out your wallet every single time and handing everybody money. And you can just pay before you go. And then you don't have to worry about it. That was really important to them on their trip. And so I made sure, prepay gratuities, check. All-inclusive, check. That makes total sense. And another client told me, I want ease of transportation. So for example, at Sandals Resorts, whatever country you go to, you can hop to the different resorts. Well, they wanted to know, okay, sure, I can hop to all the different resorts, but how? I don't know how to get there. I won't have a car. I don't live in the Caribbean, right? I want to be able to go to all of these resorts and figure out how to get there. So I have to figure out, okay, just because there are 3 resorts in this country, how are they going to get there? And, Sandals provides shuttles, so that's a little bit different story, but they might not know that. So that's when I say, transportation is super easy. You just hop on a shuttle. It takes you right to where you need to go. But for somewhere else, maybe like Italy, you have to take water taxis pretty much everywhere you go, and that could be a completely new experience for somebody. They don't know how to book it, they don't know how much it costs, and they want ease of transportation. So I might be like, Italy might not be for you, or just find a way to make it easy for them. As somebody else told me, I want something low key, I don't want crowds. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so no Disney, no Universal, no Sandals resorts that are super touristy. And then just recently a client told me, I want to hit all the touristy spots when I'm in Europe because I don't know when I'm going to be going back. This might be my only chance. While I'm on this grand European vacation, I want to hit all of those spots. So for instance, if they wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, I'm not gonna put them in a hotel that's 120 miles away from the Eiffel Tower just because it's in Europe. No, I'm gonna put them right near the Eiffel Tower, as close as in budget as I can get, to make sure they get to see what they wanna see, because that's important to them. I'm just thinking about how much of a disservice that I would be doing to my clients if I hadn't asked them this question about what is important to them. Because how else would I know? So if your travel planner has not asked you what is important on your vacation, Either find a different travel planner or just tell them what's important and make sure they do it for you. And if you're not sure what's important to you, that's okay. Not everybody does, but I encourage you, whether you're a fun and fancy free kind of person or whether you're super detail oriented, think about what is really important to you, because that's what's gonna make or break your vacation. All right, next, decide where you want to go and when you want to go. Okay, I know this seems obvious, whatever. But even though it's obvious, like, it's something you gotta do. And you have to be willing to work with your travel agent when they ask you these questions, because they don't know where you wanna go. They don't know when you wanna go. So even though it might be obvious to you, it might not be obvious to your travel planner, or vice versa. You might say, I want to go to Disneyland. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's plan a trip for this fall. And you're like, oh no, wait, I wanna go next fall. You just have to have that open communication with each other. All right, so taking that example, say you tell your travel planner you wanna go to Disneyland. Did you accidentally mean Disney World? Do you mean Disneyland Paris? Do you mean where the Harry Potter stuff is? I get this a lot. AKA, that's Universal. The Harry Potter stuff is Universal. Y'all, I've even heard people at Disney being like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to ride the Harry Potter ride, and they're in Animal Kingdom. And I'm like, you're gonna be so disappointed. Okay, but anyways, you've got to know. And how many parks do you want to go to? Do you want to do a park hopper? Do you want to add Genie Plus? What time of the year are you looking for? Where do you want to stay? I had a client a couple of weeks ago ask me to plan a Disney vacation for her, and the trip was 3 days away. And sadly, I couldn't help her. There was nothing I could do. I don't think she realized how serious is Disney these days. If you guys don't know, you have to have park tickets and park reservations. And if there are no park reservations available, they won't even let you buy tickets. There is nothing you can do. Sadly, sometimes that's what happens when you haven't decided where you wanted to go and when. So as much as your travel planner will help you, doing a little bit of research on your own is never, ever a bad thing. Like, usually I say, leave it all to me, but knowing a little bit about where you're going and what you want to do, it only helps me out, I promise. But this tip also ties into number 1 about what is important on your vacation. If it's important to you to spend some time at the beach, why would you go to Canada in the wintertime? Answer, you wouldn't. And I'm being serious. It happens sometimes where I'm planning a trip for a client and halfway through I realize they don't even want to go. So suppose a client comes to me and they really want to go on this ski trip with their family, and as I'm planning, it comes out that they don't even know how to ski, and they don't even really like skiing. They don't like the cold, and then I'm like, I feel like I'm not even planning the right vacation for you. At this point, I try to reel them back in and A, make sure they really do want to go on the vacation, and B, make the most out of it for them. I can set them up with ski lessons or show them how to get ski gear. I can make sure they're at a beautiful hotel with all of their favorite accommodations, like a hot tub. There are endless possibilities for every client. It just takes a little bit of extra effort on my part and your part, but it will totally be worth it. So help me by letting me help you. All right, tip number 3 is ask your travel agent your travel questions. I know I said earlier that doing research on your own is good, and it is, I totally meant that, but try not to dig into these super specific questions, especially if you're already working with a travel planner, because if you start asking Google and your Facebook friends or your neighbors, cousins, boyfriends, dog sitters, uncle, what they think, you could be getting the wrong answer or a weird answer or just something that leads you in the direction that you don't want to go. I have personally gone through training and I spend hours every day researching so I can plan these vacations for you. You can take comfort in knowing that everything I plan is completely 100% personalized and customized. And here's a bonus tip. Not all travel agents do this. You want to find a good travel agent who's going to ask you all of the right questions. And I promise that this is not a shameless plug for myself, okay? There are thousands of travel planners out there, but really there are only a select few who are going to be willing to put that extra effort in for you, to go that extra mile, you know? You want them to make your trip so spectacular that you never ever stop talking about it and you remember it as long as you shall live, right? This is so important, so please, I beg you, ask your travel planner your questions. Even if you're not working with one, or even if you're not working with me, you can still just shoot me a quick text or direct message and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Okay, now tips number 4 and 5 contradict each other a little bit, so hang in there, and after I explain tip number 4, I promise that tip number 5 will circle it back around and it'll all make sense. So tip number 4 is don't cheap out. This tip might offend a few of you and honestly, it kind of offends myself because I am so frugal in my normal day-to-day life. I save everything, I spend practically nothing. It's hilarious that I'm a travel planner because that's like usually the most extravagant type of spending you'll do outside of your basic expenses. But let's say that you come to me and say, Kristen, I want to go on a week-long vacation to Disneyland and Universal Hollywood. I want to have all of the fabulous dining reservations. I want park hopper tickets. I want to add Disney Genie Plus, blah, blah, blah. But I only want to have a $1,000 budget, and if I have to spend 1 penny over that, I'm not going. I'm not gonna laugh at you, but that just doesn't make sense. How in the world do you expect to do all of these things if you aren't willing to spend the money? The fact is, vacations cost money, and if you're going to do it right, you have to be willing to spend money. And I'm not talking thousands and thousands of dollars, okay? So hang in there, we'll get to tip 5 in just a second. But ask yourself, do you wanna sit next to your family of 4 on your flights? That will cost you more, but if it's worth it to you, it's better to pick that option, spend a little bit more money and not be miserable. I guarantee you no amount of money is worth being miserable. And I tell this to people all the time because in this profession, you have to be super honest and upfront about cost. Sure, I can find you a hotel for $60 a night, but it's gonna be rated a 2 out of 5 on Google reviews and it's probably bug infested. So yeah, it'll be in budget, but is that worth it to you? And of course I can book a 2-night European starter cruise for you. But when you're flying in the morning of and your jet lag is really bad and you don't enjoy your cruise at all because you're so exhausted, ask yourself, is it worth the money? And if it's not, you may want to save up a little bit more before going on your vacation or just scale back a little bit and try a different type of vacation. Like if your grand trip to Asia that you've always dreamed about is not working out for you this year, but you still want to go on a little trip, maybe just scale back and go on a nice weekend getaway somewhere and try for it next year. That's a nice transition into finally tip number 5, which is stick to your budget. And like I said, this contradicts the last tip, but only a little, okay? So whether you have $1,000 to spend or $10,000 to spend, you're going to want to stick within your budget or it can get out of hand very easily. So here are some items you need to take into account when you're booking: your hotel, your tickets, your flights, remembering that luggage and seat choice and canceling are not always included in that flight price, excursions, food, including snacking, alcohol, parking, transportation, tips and gratuities, souvenirs, and that's just to name a few. So many details go into vacation planning, and you can really end up in a bind if you do not keep these things in mind. And thankfully, that is what I am here for, although I do realize that not everybody has a travel planner, but if you don't, you definitely should, because we're free. At least most of us are. But if you have a budget for $2,000 for, let's say, 2 adults, and you're gonna wanna go on a cruise, and it's really, really important to you that you get to do a dolphin excursion where you get to swim with the dolphins in the Caribbean, it might be ideal, instead of going for, a junior suite or an ocean view room with a balcony, it might be in your best interest to scale that down and go for an inside room or an ocean view room, like with a porthole, because the dolphin excursion is going to cost you extra money. And if you don't think about it beforehand and place that into your budget, Okay, sure, a suite might fit into your budget or a balcony room might fit into your budget, but then once you start adding these excursions and these drink packages and all of these things, tips and gratuities, oh my gosh, like you're just gonna get so out of budget, it's gonna get out of hand, and then you're gonna come back to me and say, oh, I spent so much money on my vacation and okay, we don't want that to happen. Even when you have a heftier budget, let's say like $15,000 you have allotted for you and your family to go on a nice Disney vacation. I mean, a beautiful suite in the Animal Kingdom Lodge, let's say runs you $1,000 a night. You want to stay for a week, that's $7,000 right there. Boom, slashed half of your budget. And if you're flying, I mean, that could be a few $1,000s more. Just keeps adding and adding and adding. And if you don't keep this in mind, no matter whether you have a really big budget or a really small budget, you have to stick with it so things don't get out of hand. And let your travel planner know your budget too. That is very important, because otherwise, how are we supposed to help you? You know, take those two examples. Like, if your budget is $1,000, I'm not gonna book you the Royal Suite at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. That wouldn't make any sense, and it wouldn't be able to happen. And if you have this wonderful $15,000 budget, why would I put you in an inside room on a cruise? You probably don't want that unless you want to spend $13,000 on excursions, and I just don't even see how that's possible. So if you don't know your budget, take some time to think about it, then let your travel planner know. And last but not least, book sooner than later, or you may regret it. Oh, there's nothing worse than trying to go on a vacation and you can't. Oh man, this hurts my heart to no end. That is depressing and nobody wants that. Do you remember that story at the beginning that I told you about the client wanting to go to Disney 3 days later and they couldn't? That did not feel good for me, so I know that that did not feel good for her. And I will always do everything I can to make your trip happen, but if you put it off till the last minute, you might be out of luck. And I will tell y'all that I just booked very recently a trip for my cousin. She and her family are going to the campsites at Walt Disney World, and it was insane trying to find them an opening for this fall. Because of Disney bringing back the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, which, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about, as well as all of the Christmas celebrations, the campgrounds get full. If you've never seen it, go look up a video. People decorate out their campers and it is full out. I tell you, it is like driving down the most beautiful street where every single house has like blow ups in their yard and lights everywhere. It is like this at the campgrounds. So that being said, as soon as people know that the campgrounds are open and that they're gonna be going there for the Halloween and for the Christmas stuff and they wanna decorate, they book those campgrounds. So I'm filming this in May of 2022 and I was looking for something for them in October. I checked every single weekend from August 2022 till January of 2023, and I kid you not, every weekend was booked. Every weekend. I was so lucky to be able to get them a couple of weekdays in a row, but weekends, no luck, wasn't gonna happen, and we're booking months in advance. I'm not kidding here, you have to be on top of it, or at least let your travel planner be on top of it for you. And here's another fun bonus tip. There are a lot of places, especially these bigger destinations, that will let you break up your payments into smaller amounts until it gets closer to your trip, and you just have to pay a small deposit. Like I know for Disney, the deposit is like $200, and you know, cruises, it varies based on the type of room you get, but it can be like $100 to maybe $800, again, just depending on how many rooms you get and what type of room you get. But this can take a lot of stress out of planning your vacation well in advance, because you don't have to worry about emptying your bank account a year before you even travel. Moral of the story, don't wait. You've got to book your vacations as soon as you decide that you want to go somewhere, or you're gonna regret it because you're not gonna get what you want. Wow, that was a lot, but I hope it was helpful in planning your vacation, and it will definitely give you a lot to think about, and ultimately, that's my goal here. I would love to know if you have anything that you've tried on your vacation that either did work or didn't work. What do you like? What works for you? And if you found this video to be helpful, let me plan your next vacation. I would be thrilled to work with you and be here to answer all of your travel questions. And like I mentioned before, it's completely free. I promise, you don't have to pay me anything. Most travel planners are free. That's why we're so awesome. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Kristen Real Travels. Until next time, from my heart to yours, this has been Kristen Expedition.